All right, so today is the very special 5-year anniversary tour that we got here on the AutoCraft server. It's still very hard to believe that we even passed 1 year, and now we're at 5 years of in this world doing these stupid projects ever since pretty much day one at this point. Pretty sure we have around 20 projects or so this year, which is less than last year, but you still can't complain. Some of them are even more ridiculous than the past, which shouldn't even be possible. But here we are again. As you can see on my right here, or Illyrio's left, if you're watching their point of view, as they will be making a tour and maybe a showcase video like they have done in the past. We're going to go through everything that we completed this year. It is still quite a lot. And of course, starting at spawn like we always do, in case you aren't aware. This is our spawn perimeter, which at this point pretty much serves no purpose just besides being like a welcome area for any new members and things like that we have on the world. Of course, if you wanted to apply, the link is in the description for the Discord, where you can fill out an application to do so if you ever wanted to hop on the server. But ever since updating to 1.21.6, we are on currently and have been for about a month or so. Spawn chunks are not the 21 by 21 chunks around you. For spawn, it is only a 3 by 3 of entity processing, which is basically just the same as a nether portal. So we decided to just remove them entirely at this point and make them 0. That way they don't exist, because when we do update again in the future, they will be fully removed at that point. So let's kind of like future-proof it. So we have a spawn chunk loading grid down below that will be eventually made, marked out by those 2 squares that will power our new factory up there for the concrete that we will not be visiting today, because that is something that has not been completed as of now, but will be in the next tour, of course. And something else that drastically has changed is going to be our Nether Hub. And this is still a work in progress, and it is a lot of work, as you can imagine, over here based off this map. There is near 100 projects that will be linked up to this Nether Hub, and everything is fully encoded. We'll have a code you can input into these books down here that you can go from anywhere to anywhere. It's a P2P network. Also has chest minecart integrations. If you ever wanted to transport large amount of materials either back to main storage or anywhere else, you can do that with that. As of right now, not fully functional, because as I go out and free cam here, you will see that there is a lot. Especially around spawn, this sort of network doesn't really work the best for us because we have so many things condensed into the spawn area, because based off the old Nether Hub, if you have seen that, it is a little bit of an easier thing to do, make smaller ones, because they're all individual. Whereas with this one, they're all interconnected onto the same line, rather than separate ones going to very similar areas. But yeah, this, you can tell there's still a work in progress. There is a lot. I think we did recently just pass like 60% or something, maybe 50 of total completion for the hub. That doesn't include, you know, all the encoding bits, but that's just all total blocks placed. It is a lot. It's very tedious as well, as it is so many blocks, and it's just a repetitive thing over and over again. It can get very annoying to do, but we will get it done eventually. Just it wasn't done in time for the tour, so we're going to have to be flying everywhere, which is just like how we normally do anyway. This was also redone and inputted into our new central area here. All of our concrete storages and whatnot. We do have all the infrastructure in the nether. We used to have a variable box loader on top of this up here by Andrews. All this has since been moved to the overworld, as we have a faster concrete converter now. Of course, we will show that in the next tour or in the videos that will be coming out when we do finally update, or when the new videos actually are coming out, because we have updated and all the old projects have been completed and shown off on the YouTube. But all of our concrete storage, whether the powder or the solid concrete can be found in the middle here for our spawn stations. We do have 2 of them just for symmetry. It was really the only design decision there. Of course, we also do have our overworld mob switch and nether mob switch toggles in here as well. But that's pretty much all of that. And then, of course, the only way to get out, you would think, is to squeeze through that little hole over there. But if you don't want to take a minecart ride, you go over to the side over here on the north. There is a hidden door based off this polished blackstone pressure plate that you can just walk right out and go to anywhere you want, flying that way. Of course, if you also go to like an end portal or whatnot, it'll take you to spawn, so you can always just go out that way if you ever want to do so. But here on top is the bulk. We have a full box checker here that is coming out of the entrance. So as you can tell, over here is where all the boxes from the concrete thing come through, make their way on this ice path down over to here. And because we are using variable box sorters and they do break after every operation when you turn the farm off, and you could get some boxes that aren't filled, we have an is full box checker here that will make sure that we only input full boxes. And this does mean that if we do get a partial box, or even if it's one item away from being completely filled, it will get burned into the fire here. So if you cared about like saving the boxes, you wouldn't put them in fire, but we have so many shulker boxes, and it's not like concrete or anything like that is difficult to get. So it's just all straight up burned. And yeah, but this thing has seen a huge overhaul ever since we did change some things with the Nether Hub. We wanted to make it a lot more feasible and just better overall to access, which is why that has changed there. So at some point, we will finish the Nether Hub with all the piston bolt networks, and it will be a huge lifesaver. But for now, it's sort of just a huge work in progress. All right, our first location is going to look different than what it did before in the YouTube video. If you did watch it, this is going to be our converter perimeter. Ever since updating, we have made some serious upgrades to this area, thanks to some new farms that we can make, as well as new designs, even by Illyrio, that have been implemented here, that you may see very, very soon on their channel. The first thing that we're going to cover is the copper converter, as that is pretty much the thing that gets used the most in here, if I had to guess, as getting aged copper is very tedious to do. And even with this machine, it is not the most ideal thing, but it is the most compact, and I didn't want to make a whole separate area just for converting copper, so we put it in here. And the only downside to this is that you can only run like 4 boxes or so of copper in here any given point in time. But the downside is that you can't run them all constantly per hour. So you can't, have a constant stream of copper blocks, because the storage capacity is only about 30 minutes worth of placing blocks every 4 game ticks. So you can't fully AFK, which is what the huge downside I have to this with this design is. It's not the end of the world. It just means you got to like constantly start and stop it, which, not great if you want to just like fully AFK and get a bunch of the fully oxidized copper blocks. But I guess I can't complain too much, because it does get the job done in the end. As you can tell, the output here, we have recently just run about 4 boxes of the oxidized copper through it, which is why a lot of it is basically fresh copper at this point. So this design is by Cubic Meter, and we have it linked up to the blast chamber in here, just so it activates as least frequently as possible. But yeah, as of right now, this is the only thing that actually goes into the blast chamber. I think there was another thing at some other point, but it's just the copper as of now has been remade. One of the newest things is the pumpkin carver. This thing has been a huge lifesaver, if I have to tell you this right now. But I guess first we're going to cover the variable box loader over here. This is a global reset variable box loader by Heinz, I'm pretty sure. and it's very small and compact. If you have seen Andrew's one in the past, this scale is absolutely nothing compared to the one that Andrews has made many, many years ago. But everything that is formed in this area is funneled its way into this variable box loaded array. So it does mean for things like, the pumpkin carver or the Mycelium, where they're only about like 18 or 36k an hour, this full array is complete overkill, as it can handle about a little over 200,000 items per hour. But we do need this because of the log stripper and or concrete converter there that we will talk about in a little bit, as that can do 180,000. But yeah, that's where everything gets funneled to. All the water streams will make their way down to that array, which I will show you real quick. Just going to turn my block sounds, as this thing is kind of loud, but it is a very nice machine, and I think something that everybody else should make as well. So just going to grab some pumpkins in my offhand, fill my inventory completely. That way I can only hold the shears in one slot and the pumpkins in another. I'm going to unflick this lever. That will drop me a shear. This thing will fully restock me all the time. That's the boat. I didn't want to click on that. But we have a lot of stockpile of shears here. You could link this up to a shear crafter instead. We just haven't done that, as the schematic only includes the shears, and I didn't want to modify it first. I want to make sure it all worked properly. So maybe at some point we could add a shear crafter, but it's also not that difficult to just craft some shears beforehand. But yes, all you do is you stand against here. You have the shears in your main hand, pumpkins in your offhand, and just player yourself use interval of 1. You'll place 1, then it'll kickstart system there. And yeah, you can see that all the pumpkin seeds are forced off to this one side only, but all the actual carved pumpkins are making their way down and being dispensed out here. Originally, there is a shulker box loader down here, but like I said, I didn't want to have it like partially be filled, so we have all of it link up to the variable loaders at the side there. But yeah, you can see just how quick you're using shears here. I'm already going through one. I'm already halfway done the next. So it does rip through it. It's about 36,000 carved pumpkins per hour, which is actually insane compared to some other designs, especially for how simple it is. It's not a big build at all. A lot of it is just shulker box unloaders at this point. So for this machine, if you know you made a lot of chromosses, or just anything that uses a lot of jack-o'-lanterns, you know that this is one of the most annoying things to get in large quantities. So we're going to just stop here. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to just pick up everything, so that way that lever stops the shears from being crafted. I just made a barrel here to put the shears in instead. Then any leftover pumpkins you can then just chuck back in the box there that you do get at the end. Then over here, you can see the variable loader getting on cooldown mode right now. It is just emptying the filters, and all the boxes are being broken. It'll only break boxes that do actually have things inside of them. All of them will make their way over to this part here, where you can take them out. And I have a little box merger over here, where you can then just drop all of them. And then on the right, you can then put them in a box, and then the way they're all compacted into one single one. And then you can obviously just take them out if you wanted to. It's not a full box, but then if a full box is broken, it'll then make its way down to the bottom chest there. We mainly need this because of the copper converter, because it is a slow blast. It only brings items in every 20 to 30 seconds. And by the time that the variable loaders are in cooldown mode, the next batch is coming in, and all the boxes break. So you only get 1 or 2 stacks per box, and that's very annoying to compact it. So I just took Command Leo's manual crafting thing that usually was Tweakaroo for mass crafting, and I just removed the crafting tables, and that way it's essentially just a manual box merger, as doing it with the system would just take way too long. The player is the best box merger of them all. Over here, we have the Mycelium farm. This has stayed the same. You place another rack, it gets bonemealed, the player mines it with the pickaxe, and that makes its way out of there. You're then restocked with another rack over here, which we are actually fully out of. That stayed the same. Over here, the only other thing that we have added is a mud farm, or mud converter, I should say, rather, because you are inputting the dirt, and then you get the mud in the output. Anything and everything you want will be somewhere linked in the description if possible. So all you do, I added a box unloader, a box eater right there. When you would have dirt in, you would then just go down. Oh, that wrong. I'll block myself off. So you would come down here, you just place dirt against that back glass block or black piston, and then we have the pressure plate here that will dispense the new blocks once you do run out of all the dirt. And all that's happening here is, if I go into CS, up here there is a dispenser with water bottles inside of it that power every 4 game ticks that create the mud from the dirt. And then it just gets pushed into a blast chamber where it gets blown up and out. Despite its size, because you're placing a block every game tick, it is 72,000 mud blocks per hour, which is an insane amount. Now, it does mean that you do require the dirt to place, but it is a very small and compact thing if you need dirt very quickly and you don't want to make a huge mud farm. You can also just do something like this, where you just manually convert it. The best thing about it is it does recycle all of the bottles, so you don't need to ever refill that besides the pre-fill. It's only about like 7 shulkers of empty bottles to pre-fill, which is not that bad. So that's, you can get a lot of mud that we are finally updated. Of course, if we were still in 1.17, this wouldn't be possible, but because we are, it is all there. Last thing, and the most recent thing that has been added here besides the mud, of course, is Illyrio's 180k log stripper and or concrete converter, as it does have waterlogged stairs that you do place on that can convert any concrete powders into the solid concrete. To use it, you do need TIS carpet, as at the bare minimum, you need to place 5 blocks per tick, which I do not believe is possible in vanilla. I knew for sure that the log stripping was not, because you do need to do 10 blocks per tick, which is a lot, but it does work with TIS carpet. We have a bunch of axes here, as you can tell. We have done a bit of damage to them in that box there with stripping some logs, as just like the aging copper and pumpkins, it's very annoying to get in large quantities if you need it for like a decoration or any of the builds or farms. It's very tedious. So all you would do is put your boxes in here, pick up the way up the ladder here, turn the lever off. We could position this somewhere else if you really wanted to. It's not too difficult to get up there. And then you're just placing against that very last spec stair there with the item in your offhand, and then you fill your inventory up. That way you only get 1 stack at a time for the box. So very simple thing, but it is an extremely fast thing. Illyrio did have a bunch of mixed box loaders down below originally, but like I said, everything is all rerouted to the main unloading array, as when you switch in item types with this kind of stuff, it's kind of annoying. Same thing with concrete. When you have the concrete duper, not having a variable loader is more of a pain because you don't get all the items back. When I first was testing it to make sure it all worked properly, I put in 4 boxes of black concrete powder. I only got 3 boxes of black concrete in the output because all the rest of it was still buffered in the box loader. So that's one of the huge advantages I love about the variable box loading array, because it doesn't buffer anything down to the single item that you produce from the farm. It's given back to you. Now it is in small boxes, but that's the whole point of the box merger there. So this area should be fully finalized now. I don't see anything ever being added to it unless Mojang does add some more annoying blocks that we do not have in here. It can be added. We have ample space in this manually dug perimeter that is in the shape of recycled arrows, because of course, hence the name, you are converting blocks into other blocks, just like recycling. All right, the next project that is here is the Pillager XP Outpost Farm. It doesn't entirely work in this version anymore because of the fact that the new spawn height, or the terrain depth rather, has changed. So if we go back to the AFK depth point, because it's so far down, we get mobs spawning beneath. We do need to turn the mob switch off, of course, as well. But if you have seen this, this is based off the Nico is Lost Outpost farm, which uses a raid bar, as you can tell up there. This Revenger here is part of a raid that's been here for a very long time. And any pillagers that spawn in the area here will spawn and then join the raid. When they do so, they do not count toward the mob cap anymore. As you can see, this guy right here, they're not counted to the mob cap because they've joined the raid. Unfortunately, this doesn't really seem to be working anymore, as a lot of pillagers are getting stuck here, which they didn't in the past. So this may need to be changed at some point if we wanted to do so. I really want to get it to work for the Bad Omen bottles themselves. But because they're in the raid, apparently they will not drop the Bad Omen bottles. So yeah, I will put a clip here if I can find it. I'm gonna maybe also send it to Illyria if I can, of the farm actually working. It is a sight to behold when it did work, as there was, at least all the time, I think there was around 1,000 pillagers at all times in this farm, which is a crazy waterfall to just watch down the drop chutes here. So unfortunately, I cannot run it now, as the reasons I have explained, but the player would normally just sit down here with their sword, swipe it at the armor stand, and that would activate the conveyors that would then send more of them down. I did add this on-off switch of lava being dispensed down here because there was a lot when you turn the farm off and you stop swiping, because the pillagers would just constantly keep spawning because they don't have a mob cap at that point because they're joining the raid. So it can get out of hand very quickly if you do not have the cautions to deal with it if you're not actually using the farm. Which is also why the portal is still so high up, because we need to despawn all the pillagers before we do leave. And then the way to do that is to fly within 128 blocks away. That way the hostile mobs instantly despawn. We use Illyria's gradient placer for the wall using the matrix pattern. And then the floor is just a green and yellow theme here, just to fit the XP sort of theme we got going on. All right, so the next one is also going to be another broken farm, which I didn't think would be the case. And apparently all of the dolphin heads that we have here also don't work anymore. Couldn't tell you why. But apparently something has changed with fish spawning, and that also does affect dolphins. Of course, they do share the same mob cap. For right now, apparently there's not a single fish spawning here. It is built at like Y45 for the water. So in my head, I thought I did some research and this would still work when we updated, which is why I didn't make it on the ground. But maybe that has since changed again and I just missed it. But this thing would work. We have the guardians in the corners here. They do shoot the squids that do spawn with the dolphins. So unfortunately, there is no way to stop them completely from spawning, so you get both them, the dolphins and the squid. These guardians are designed to dispose of the squids because they don't care about water. But then dolphins, they get attracted based off this item. As you can see in the very middle, we'll go down here. There's a dropper in the middle of the soul sand that is the item on a hopper clock that the dolphins are attracted to. So they get drowned in here, they get pushed up into the soul sand column, and then they would get stuck in the cobwebs here, which is how I am able to have killed over 200 dolphins just from testing this farm alone. This farm was made for a friend, Comview, where they have a hatred for the dolphin mobs, and I also did develop my own as shadow items. So when we're making perimeters and we're making these sand trenches for the liquids and whatnot, and you're going through them with, you know, concrete powder or sand or whatever, and you move more than one block, you move faster than you can place 20 blocks per second. The shadow items can't keep up, and then you would break your shadow item stack, and you need to go redo it. So that's where my hatred came from it. But I decided because of, you know, they hated them so much, I was like, I'll make a farm just so that I can say I made it at this point. That's pretty much this whole world. Make it a farm just so you can say that you'd made it before. There's no real benefit. You get a little bit of regular fish or cod from them. That's basically it. And at the time we got the mob heads, but now they're all back to Steve. So that is quite unfortunate, but there is a video on my channel that does show this farm working and everything. It's exactly how they explained it, but obviously it's better to see it in person, which I thought I was going to be able to do, but when I was preparing for the tour to visit everything, we did notice that the there's no mob spawn in here at all, which there used to be a lot of fish here and dolphins. So kind of unfortunate, but it's not really worth redoing as it wasn't really useful at all. So it may just sit here in the graveyard forever. But yeah, once again, Illyrio's gradient wall placer was used for the wall decoration, and then we have the dolphin, which turned out absolutely amazing. That's this whole area wrapped up. We're going to go on to another passive mob farm, as we have done quite a lot this year, being the Mooshroom. All right, coming the distance now, you can see we have the other side of the Mooshroom, and it is a single dimension farm, which is why we have this little thingy here that is like a little mini mushroom island. We have Illyrio's player cannon, which we need to fix because the pearl alignment has changed, so that's why we can't use those at all right now. But through the portal here, we will go to the overworld, which is a giant mushroom farm. Not really giant, but it is a decently sized farm for the speed. So we get roughly 2,300 steak and 1,600 leather per hour. Well, I guess the thing is we did before we updated in 1.17, as this was built at the bottom of the world. I suspect this is going to be significantly slower now, as the world height has changed by a lot. There was no bedrock break-in to begin with here. Into the deep slate at the very bottom beneath the floor was where the bedrock was. But we have the smart spawn detection here that Illyrio did have in their design. They also did make a dual dimension version of this that is available on their Discord if you, for some reason, wanted to build one of these farms. As they would be useful if hoglins didn't exist, but because they do, this isn't really the most practical thing to do, as Mooshroom Island perimeters take it from someone that's made them and also made a full 530 by 530 perimeter. It's not fun. We have the pure ocean perimeter essentially, and we also had unlucky and we had a bit of ice spikes on the one side, so that made it even more annoying. So yeah, just don't make one of these. It's all I can really say. But yeah, doing this, we only need to have the string and the tripwires in one spawning pad. It does mean that the first initializing of the farm is a bit slower because you need to sync the clock to the passive spawning cycle of 20 seconds. But it does mean it's less build effort overall, and it means you can have a global clock rather than a detection spawn pads where you have it all separate. It just means it's a bit easier to build overall at not really costing you the rates, just a longer startup sequence, which is not the end of the world. So we're not going to sit here forever. If we do happen up getting a Mooshroom to spawn, we will show that off. But what this does is I'll go into CS here. We have everything with piston conveyors because with this, we didn't want to be dual dimensions. So we need to bring the cows that spawn on the paths up to the player. So the only way to do that is with mob conveyors. So we have to use these piston things, feed tapes down here that push the cows along. We do need this lava, lava thing in the middle here to sort out the babies, because some of them won't get pushed off. As you can tell, the conveyor is heights up and down. So the babies can get stuck right in the middle here, and then they would either get pushed off the edge here or get pushed into the magma blocks and then just sit there and get disposed of. Otherwise, the big mushrooms then get pushed their way over onto these magma blocks. That way they are being ticked so that they don't despawn. Wait, no, they wouldn't despawn, but they're getting just pre-damaged. That way they are a little bit less HP when they get to the top here. So we have all three platforms converge into this one section here, where they then get pushed up or over to the middle one by one, and then pushed up by this conveyor that Fallen made for the polar bear farm. I just repurposed it for this farm here. And it is very occasionally that we do get a couple of mushrooms stuck at the bottom here. So we have a little bit of extra lava dispensers that will clear those guys out and free them back up the mob cap, as they would not despawn. Well, yeah, the player is then just sitting up here, where they then would just swipe the armor stand with their sword to apply the Ludent effect. They are lit on fire by this netherrack, so you don't need to have a fire aspect sword either. But this fire also doubles as a fully AFKable one. If you didn't want to use in like a player command or whatever, you could have just the cows burn themselves and not have Ludent, which I don't know why you would, but it is a unintended feature that is there. So then the drops just make their way down into the water stream, where they are sorted out between leather and the stake, and it is a decent amount for the effort of the farm itself down there. But I really do like these single dimension farms, mainly just because it offers a lot more uniqueness right? Portals. And I also did design this farm myself, so it was a huge challenge for me to like figure things out, and huge help. A huge thank you to Illyrio for all their help that they had with this design process, as it was a very different thing that I've done normally in the past. But yeah, the decoration here is probably one of my favorites, especially the floor. It is all redstone blocks, but it could have been done with red concrete, but redstone blocks just have that brighter red. But we have the Mooshroom pixel art here, and then the walls that are faded from the black, white to the red. Very clean overall thing, but it is very simple, so it just turned out great in the end, I think. So I've always wanted to do something like this ever since, SciCraft and whatnot. That's pretty much where my first initial like motivation came from, in the was them. So back in the 1.12 era, or even before then, the best way for food was mushroom farms. So being able to finally do one of these is a huge accomplishment to do, but I also wanted to do it in our own special way there. So we didn't end up getting a mushroom spawn. It's kind of expected now that the height map did change and there's very little spawn-in pads. So what that would do is you would get the spawn-in, it would then sync the clock. All of the other spawn-in pads would unflood themselves, and then the next spawn-in cycle you would then get the huge influx of the mushrooms. But we don't got to sit here all day to get that, because we got other places to go to. And the next one is going to be a very even more useless farm than this. All right, so I said I could get useless, and what could be more useless than a massive mob farm that never gets used? Well, that, my friends, would be a sand quarry, as we do obviously gravity block dupe on the server. Why would we make a quarry for sand when we can just make concrete duper and just run that instead? ever since seeing Illyrio's video on the project, the time-lapse was super satisfying to do, and I wanted to do it myself, so I was like, let's have at it, but let's do it in the AutoCraft way and make it even more stupid, but also make it a 900 block long sand quarry. So we have 3 of the quarries individually. They have a max width of about 300 blocks, so that's why we need to do separate ones. And there's extra middle trenches here, because we couldn't just make a long one, as the items would then just despawn. So that was the compromise we had to do there if we wanted to make a longer one. So we fly all the 1,000 block that says ran so far all the way down. You can see the wasteland that it has left over with all the barren trees. There's no sand on top. There's a lot of stone exposed. That is all thanks to the sand quarry here that goes around and harvests all gravity blocks at the end here. So what it does is it has a patch of soul sand and then regular blocks on the edge. The flying machine is a 3-way flying machine that goes across. It'll then pick these blocks up, and then it'll be in the air like this. It'll fall and then break on the soul sand. Then there is another piston at the bottom that would then push it across to the other side, where it would then fall off into the hoppers and be collected that way, and then sent back to the main storage that we're at over there, and be sorted into a box loader. So we do need shulker box loaders because you do get some like sticks or saplings and gravel and whatnot in the pipeline as they do break, of course. So we need to have like a little bit of a filtered box loader at the end there, which we have, but all the quarries are parked here as of right now. But if we go back to the storage, we'll see all the sand that this quarry has gathered. I'm pretty sure it's around 2 million or so that we got from this, which is pretty decent. If you weren't, of course, gravity block duping, this would be the only realistic way to get large quantities of sand, if you ever needed to do so. So we have this little building here that is our storage. That way it's somewhat decorated and not just a simple storage, but on the left here is where it was filled up first. You can see we have a lot of sand here. Each one of these columns is 1 million. So I think we're at like 1.5 or 7 total sand that is still here that has been collected. So yeah, it's not a useful thing in the case of if you just needed sand for like concrete powder or glass or whatnot. In your TNT dupe, this really makes no sense at all, and was just a fun little side project that we could do here. So yeah, right behind this here where the middle chest is the 2 6x box loaders that have the sand obviously get packed into them, where the water stream converges into them. So yeah, that's pretty much this area. It's very empty and, like I said, a huge wasteland at this point, because it has pretty much been harvested of all the sand for at least 900 by 1,000 blocks here. So like I said, if you didn't TNT dupe or gravity block dupe or whatnot, this would be the most feasible way to get millions of sand if you wanted to do so, but you do need a very large desert for this to be worthwhile. So that's the most useless project that we have made all year, and it's kind of hard to believe that it's sand, which is a very useful thing by itself. So the next thing is actually what we're standing right on top of, and you would probably not know from the naked eye here unless we were to go into CS or FreeCam and go right below. Right below here is our 1K by 1K Nether Perimeter. This was completed more than a year ago at this point now, I'm pretty sure. However, we still haven't fully finished it, as just like in the overworld, which we were right next to, right to the south of the sand quarry, we have the overworld 1K by 1K void perimeter, which is in the 3-year world tour if you wanted to go see that. We're planning to make the same thing in the Nether. The perimeter was completed quite a long time ago, but we are sort of in the process of setting up the breakers to actually break the floor and the roof, as we have double the amount of bedrock as we did in the overworld. So hopefully, thanks to Cade's breaker here, we should be able to do this relatively with ease. It's just going to take about, I think you said about like 10 days or so earlier to go across 1K blocks.
11 days, I think.
11 days just for one layer to go across entirely. And roughly it's about a day or so after you launch the first breaker to then be able to make space for the next one. So about 14 days, about 2 weeks, you can get a full 1K by 1K broken with these sort of 5-layer bedrock breakers. But of course, you have to build one layer at a time, let that one break enough space for the next one, and so on until you're able to get all 5 running. But once you get all 5 running, it's just an AFK point at that time. So, but it wouldn't be 5 for us because we had to do the same thing on the roof, which we hope to run at the same time. That way, it's as quick as possible. It can be done to break the whole thing. So yeah, everything's in place to be done. It's just having to get the time and effort to build the rest of the breakers and letting them run until we can actually break it. So hopefully by the next world tour, we can have this fully broken and we can finish off our project of having 1K by 1K in both overworld and Nether completely voided. If we go back out of CS here, this portal with the yellow and orange glass is actually the center of the perimeter, but it's also the center of the overworld perimeter that we can go through here, which is why we wanted to make them in the same spot. And of course, this does look a little bit different if we were to fly to one of the edges here, because we did update, of course, and we can actually fly down a bit lower. The terrain is now visible on the outside, so we may or may not extend the wall down. So yeah, we have these extra liquids and whatnot that are flowing into the perimeter, because that's where the bedrock was broken all the way to. And when you do update, if you don't remember, you don't have any blocks that generate beneath if there is no bedrock. One thing I do want to show people, if you want to see us to Mycelium, on the, for whatever reason, on 3 of the sides besides the north side, we do have a strip of terrain that generated beneath the wall. So if you fly through the wall, instead of being a empty gap all the way to the overhead, which is what slate, these 2-layer deep slate here was, for some reason, I guess the game decided to glitch out, but there is a strip of terrain underneath the single block thick wall, and it just looks a bit weird, especially when you get to see some of them like liquids and that generate. They don't update. You can see here if you want to see estimate, there's lava and whatnot that just didn't update. So
that's weird.
Effectively have update suppressed the liquids here for some reason, but I don't know if the terrain gen didn't work here. You can tell there's some vines and whatnot on the wall, but it happened on every single side besides the north. So I'm still confused on to as why that is, because I always thought that if there was any bedrock, then it would generate beneath the bedrock. But if there wasn't, which there wasn't with the wall, because the wall is made, if you look at it at Y0, it's impossible for any bedrock to be beneath that. Why it generated on 3 sides and not all 4, I have no idea. So if anybody does know and you want to leave it in the comments, I would appreciate that, because I didn't understand it at first when I first visited here. And the fact it's only on 3 and not all 4 makes it even more confusing. So yeah, so the main thing is that they are both centralized on each other. So that portal in the Nether is in the center of the portal in the overworld, and vice versa, of course. So having them in the same spot and being completely voided would be very cool in the end. We just need to buckle down and actually finish the bedrock break-in, which Illyrio does know a lot about with their 1k by 10k Nether Perimeter that they have broken the full roof.
Nah, don't do it. Bad idea.
Alright, so huge jump cut here, especially if you're coming from Illyrio's YouTube channel, as we kind of forgot to cover this one, as you know, it was all scuffed and kind of like last minute planning. There was really no planning, so I was just going through the completed project channels in my Discord, the AutoCraft Discord, and yeah, I really just glossed over this one as I saw Stray and Skeleton right next to each other. Going off the fly, my brain combined those two into one when they are completely so we're going to cover this real quick. It's just me. Illyrio is not able to be here. They were actually the one that brought this to my attention, so thank you for that. Because this farm is very unique and I feel like should very well 100% be covered, which is what we're going to do right now. So I currently am sitting here on top of the AFK spot with the mob switch off, and the farm is actually running down below me. It is a single dimension farm. It is a down Excel farm that Illyrio has, of course, designed for us and everything like that using these spawning pads here. So you can see occasionally you will see some skeletons just falling down, and they get detected based off the tripwires here, and then activate this sequence right here that will basically remove the platform you saw it right there, but very quickly remove the platform below, down Excel them down into the pointed dripstone. Now the fire is here. Forget the ones that have the feather fallen. They will get pushed over and start burning in the fire. But some drops here, of course, aren't collected. It's a bit unfortunate. We would get a little bit higher rates if that is, but that is only down to the spawning pads getting out of sync with the timing down here. So that is what we have this extra top line going across the top here. That is to reset the platforms, because sometimes this lightning rod can get stuck up top. And it's very, I would say it's pretty common and safe with this sort of design the Illyrio has gone with. So because of that, before I implemented this fix, we were getting so many drops down here. And you can tell it's still kind of a lot, but it's definitely a lot less than it once was. But yeah, so when they fall down here, they get pushed across with this slime block here right into that. The fires you can see there. Then if they don't have any armor or feather fallen, they would die instantly on the dripstone. So I'll put the tempo right there. All the drops immediately get picked up into the hopper line that is actually at the bottom bedrock here that we had to break just for that hopper and dropper line to get that little bit of extra rates there. As you can tell, we got a bunch of droppers and whatnot constantly firing here that is transporting all the items in droppers and hoppers that we cannot, of course, sort. We cannot use water in the Nether, so sorting becomes a little bit difficult here. So we have just these 1/6x loader for each of the bones and the arrows, as that's the only stuff we could get from here, as they do die to fall damage. But yeah, the candles here are not necessary. I just thought it looked a lot cooler having that. Don't entirely know how that skeleton spawned on the outside, because that is just not possible. But they will eventually despawn as they are far enough away from the player. I have these two markings here, that way I can constantly turn on the dropper lines, because sometimes it's not perfect. We will eventually get a little bit of backup here in the dropper line. So this marked out here, that way I can go like this. Turn that on that side, and then I have the same thing over here somewhere. I am pretty sure to do the same exact thing. It's over here by a different glass. So what that essentially does is that just constantly is activating the dropper lines for the output drops. Sometimes, you know, things get backed up because of the delay not being long enough and whatnot. So very simple solution is just to add a little lever here that will constantly be clicking those droppers, whether the bedrock clock has enough or not. So not a big deal, very easy addition, but I was going to mainly focus as the rest of the bedrock breaking we had to do. It's not a lot. which makes it a little bit more difficult to do. I mean, obviously the easiest thing to do would just be to break the whole floor, but that wouldn't look the best. The original plan was to break the full roof, which is why the roof isn't fully centralized, but I think it does look its cool factor of its own. But if we were going to break the full roof, as it is a manually mined project down here, as you can see, this is all manually mined out. It is a certain shape that we have going on here, and we did extra walls here just to seal it off completely from the rest of the area. But yeah, all manually mined out. I think it's around 100,000 blocks volume per layer. The last time I did the math, which granted was almost a year ago, I think at this point. So that could be wrong. It could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But yeah, so we did the bedrock breaking up top here as well. It is a full strip of all 5 layers. As you can tell, there's the overhead being 1 block per. And I just sort of capped it off to make it look a little bit cleaner. That way, in fact, it looks like there is no overhead, which is, I think, a very nice thing to do. That is not very much effort, to just a little bit of decoration that goes on top of the overhead there. Just smooth it all out. But yeah, all of the drops are, like I said, transported up here via this clock little system I got going on here that just essentially just aligns the items against this occasionally, then sends them across. And if they were to, of course, go across the other side, then they would get sent back, which rarely does happen as the rates are not too high. But sometimes on top of cooldowns and whatnot, you could, of course, get that slight oversight of the thing. So making sure we cover all bases and don't waste any of the drops. I mean, I could, of course, just like cap them off, but to each their own, not a big deal. But yeah, all the drops will make their way down to here, where we have all the bones get sent to one side and all of the arrows get sent to the other side. We've probably taken some of these bones back. This drop pervader is not perfectly reliable, but it gets the job done. It's just a temporary storage pretty much there. I mean, this is just a nice little farm that we got going on in the Nether that only farms regular skeletons. I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning. You can see the thing getting out of sequence right here. But this is why we have the extra clock that will fix that, because this does unfortunately happen sometimes. But occasionally we will send a signal via that top rail that will reset this. But I just wait for that. Obviously, the more frequent you send it, the lower your rates are, because it does block the spawn attempts. But there we go. That was the signal that gets sent down all the way to reset all of the things here. And then, yeah. This uses the same biome border bug, as we're going to call it. As you can see right here on the top left, I'm going through a soul sand valley and another waste right on a border. This location was very specific because we needed a full random despawn sphere fully to be the same thing as the soul sand valley, and then it popped over to the nether wastes. Otherwise, if we can't have that, then the farm is very, very slow, as the size is limited based off that border crossing right there. So that's only why we have a farm in this little small strip right here, and of course the full despawn sphere that we would normally. So, but the fact that this is a lot faster than it would be for a full despawn sphere anyway, and it's of course a lot less effort to make. So yeah, this area I think definitely should have been covered. I do completely apologize for missing that in the original tour. But yeah, this area turned out pretty clean and simplistic for how it actually is. And of course, it's just to be a unique farm that we have here. And normally we would take the player cannon, which is right here, but as we now updated, the pearl alignment does not work anymore, so we will have to figure out something else to actually fix this. I think there's an updated version of this cannon, but I don't know for certain if it needs to be a full rebuild, which wouldn't be ideal. But yeah, we'll cut back to the rest of the tour now. So I do apologize once again, but back to the rest of the tour. So this will actually be the most recent video on the channel if I don't end up uploading one before the world tour. This is the Bucket of Fish Perimeter, which is quite an interesting one, and something I always wanted to at some point do when it came to Nembom, which is the farm. Seeing this thing was actually really interesting, to say the least, back in the day when they did make the fun farms sort of category they did. But I wanted to make it fully automatic, where there was no pre-filling of buckets or whatnot. Everything was fully automated here. So we have MD's iron farm up top, the waifu. This thing produces basically just enough iron per hour to fully sustain all of the buckets that we do use per hour. Now, unfortunately, this was designed with corporate auto-crafting table. So now that we do updated, we need to make some actual regular bucket crafters that work with the crafter rather than the crafting table. But, you know, we have some over here stockpiled up, and I can't see us ever needing this stuff besides maybe the pufferfish for some weird door mechanic or whatever. But we have it fully automated here with the link with the lever right here, which also in turn turns the iron farm on. So we should, hopefully, this thing still works. I think it should. The clock may just be not perfect for this version. I think Iron Golem spawning times did change, so it wouldn't work constantly, but it should still, at least, hopefully, spawn some golems. If not, okay. So they do still work. I think we need to modify the clock to make it a little bit longer there. So all you would do is you would grab the bucket down here. You would then get on top of the slab and trapdoor. We need to stay back a little bit because of the fact that we have the pufferfish in here. This is built in a warm ocean biome. That way we could get all of the cods, the tropical fish, as well as the pufferfish. And I'm surprised that fish are actually still spawning here, unless they were just stuck here. No, okay. So this looks like it also is now broken, which is kind of unfortunate. But like I said, it's a lot of the farms we made this year are very niche and are likely to never be. But just so that we had the farm, we always wanted to at least try and make it. But you get the bucket, you then looks like my shulker box loader broke. That's not good. But you would just need to sit there with the bucket, click twice, and then drop Q to drop the bucket into the hopper. It would then get picked up, and for some reason this box did not break because there is an empty bucket in there. That's why it should have been a water bucket, but like I said, it's not the end of the world. We are probably never using any. It is all good. With the floor here, we went with Finding Dory or Nemo because obviously that's just the perfect fit in for that. And then we have the reef background here that just ties the whole area together, I think, and very unique sort of decoration here, I think, for the area, considering what we had to make inside of it. So very interesting farm to say the least, but useful or practical, not entirely, unless you're going to need to collect every single type of tropical fish there is. This would be the farm for you. All right, so the next area is our fully automated dirt farm. We have a huge storage here. As you can tell, there is not a single box in here. Well, that's also because I've never even filled the farm with Bonemeal. So I inputted the first few shulkers you can see over here into the unload. But this whole dropper line needs to be filled with Bonemeal, or been told, for the farm to actually work. So yeah, that thing is never going to be ran, mainly just for the fact because we have quarries and manual mining projects where we have gotten quite a significant amount of dirt. But this is the way we could get it fully automatically if we wanted to. This farm makes, I think, 180,000 dirt per hour, making use of 2x2 spruce trees. It does also harvest a small amount of logs because you need to get out of it to replace for the the saplings, of course, to grow more trees. But it has a ton, and I mean a ton, of stone converters just to create the moss and whatnot to then turn it into dirt. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Like I said, I haven't ran it, so I don't know entirely what's happening here. Oh no, it makes sense now. We need the moss for the stone to go into moss. That way, when the 2x2 spruce tree grows, it creates podzol, and then we blow up the podzol. Now I remember exactly what we needed here. So this thing has a lot of moving parts. It is very annoying to make because there is so many different types of item that you need. It did take quite a long time to build, and like another project in this world, it's probably never going to be ran at all. But it is here. If we ever needed to have a lot of dirt, we have a fully automatic farm to do so. On the right and left, on the east and west side, we do have the crow moss here. I made 2 separate towers just for the sake of symmetry. Could have just done one tall one. That would have been fine. But we've had this to supply the bonemeal for the farm. Each one of these 2x2 squares is 8k. So each of these towers makes 24k. Total, obviously, do the math, 48,000 bonemeal. I don't think it uses all of that amount. It's probably around 40,000 or about 44,000 if I had to guess to get everything there. I always just make larger than I need to because I'd rather have a surplus rather than less than I need. Those all make their way up to the box loaders and then get input the unloaded array here if we needed that to happen. But like I said, it's never going to get run, so it was just for the sake of making the farm. Like a lot of things on here, we have the on-off note block here that you would then turn the farm on and off. That also does turn on the crow mosses, so you can have that all linked up to one on and off switch. But yeah, we have all this area here. We have, I think this is the one that was shown off in Floppy's video for the encoded floor placer. This is that same floor pattern there. I just quickly nabbed that because it perfectly fits the dirt theme of it being the brown for the dirt as well as the green for the moss and grass. And then we use Illyrio's gradient wall placer again for the walls here. So yeah, it was this farm was just made for the sake of making another perimeter. As of right now, before we exclude any new projects we have done, in this world we have 95 perimeters, which we are so close to having that big 100. I hope to hit it before the end of the 2025 year, which we have about 3 months or 2 months actually to do so before that does come to an end. So hopefully we can get that. It should be pretty straightforward, but I just don't like making perimeters without having an idea of the farm to put inside of it. So as long as we come up with the ideas to make the perimeters or to put inside the perimeters, we can always just make them and have them all fully finalized there for some use in the future. So this one right here, for the longest time, we never had a permanent space here for anything like stone, cobblestone, basalt. So this is what the basics perimeter, as we call it, is going to be for. Unfortunately, with portal linking, we do get sent up top. So the only way to get in is flying over here. Down the old, but now useless XP drop chute for the stone farm. As the XP portal-based farm up here at the very top of the world does not work anymore. Thanks to the pigment drop changes, that thing will not drop any XP anymore. So the stone farm will still work. You'll just need to swap your pickaxes manually because there will be no mending that will happen from that. So right below us, we have the giant cobblestone and basalt farm. You will notice that they are both based in the overworld, which means that the basalt would be a lot slower than it would be if you made this farm in the Nether. However, it is still a insane of 1.2 million per hour. This thing absolutely just rips out so many boxes of cobblestone and or basalt. You don't need to make a basalt farm in the Nether. I really wanted to make it so that we could have both of them in the same farm. So we did that. There is also a Blackstone version of this farm, which is what I have here. That does only work with a carpet feature of carpet renewable Blackstone, which is something that basically has the same sort of thing as creating basalt, but it has soul sand instead. So of the things like that. So you can make Blackstone if you wanted to, but we get so much of that stuff from bartering. It's pretty much just like a, I guess, flex factor of it, if you ever wanted to call it that, even though it's not really vanilla. But this farm is capable of doing all three. So I'm going to just turn the farm on real quick. It's currently configured for the cobblestone mode. It will get very loud with all the note blocks. So I'm going to turn that stuff off. But yeah, it also makes do with this of a single TNT duper and blast chamber. So all of it is converted to a single spot here. And yeah, it, you can tell it just shreds through blocks that it's producing. And then all to make their way down to the box limit arrays where they are need to have filters and mode. It does do a bit more. Obviously, you get some of the like the output still has some cobblestone and or basalt or blackstone. So unfortunately, you can't just have it like that. One minor upgrade I guess we could do to this is making a array instead. But this works. It's not too difficult to make these minimal prefill loaders by fill. To have there, they're all 6x loaders. So this array can handle quite a lot of stuff here. So the other benefit of this design here is that it is hot swap. Well, it's currently running and in cobblestone mode. I'm going to switch over to basalt mode while the farm is still running, and you will see that it is going to work perfectly fine to switch it over. It will just take a little bit to get all of the block streams here to be producing basalt rather than the cobblestone, but you will see it'll slowly start making its into full-on basalt mode, which is just a huge quality of life thing that it's all contained in a single farm rather than needing to have one separate for each. And the fact that it's in the overworld makes it even better, so you don't need any complicated nether stuff as well. It's all contained in a single overworld dimension. So overall, now we finally have a permanent area to farm endless amounts of cobblestone and basalt. And if we go into the output block stream of the boxes, you will see that that creates almost a constant speed of that stuff there. It looks like I forgot to put a packed ice in one of the water streams for the cobblestone, but that's not that big of a deal. It's only cobblestone. It's not the end of the world, but yeah. You'll pretty much always see a box in the output here. We got one coming now, and then you'll have a lot just being outputted, because if you do the math, it's very little time in between boxes that you do get, but there is quite a substantial amount of both basalt as well as cobblestone here if we ever needed to do so, which, let's face it, cobblestone is something that is used all the time in crafting recipes, whether it's cobblestone and or stone. So great thing for that. And of course we have the storage for stone, but we have so much stone from manual mining project that's never going to get used. And of course it is now quote unquote broken because we can't repair the pickaxe with the old portal based pigment forms. All right, so the next farm here is actually one that will still technically work. The same thing like the stone farm, the pickaxe or shovel in this case repairing just unfortunately will not. This thing uses the dirt, which is why it's also built within close enough proximity to the dirt farm. That way we can create endless amounts of grass and or mycelium for the other farm on the other side, making use of grass spread in, which is the cedar blocks are underneath the lanterns here. These ones do not move, and they will actually move the dirt over and spread onto the dirt and make grass and or mycelium. So there is a way you can actually farm this kind of stuff. It is just very annoying to do so. But yeah, that's what this perimeter is for. We do need a lot of this for the, you could say, the Mooshroom Farm. Having large amounts of grass is also nice if you ever need it or stuff like that. This farm will do so. Also does it at a rate of 72,000 per hour. Now there is a big asterisk near that, as it does technically use 3 players, 2 to mine, 1 to place. You could very easily make a smaller farm that wouldn't need a lot. We just made the fastest one because obviously, why not? But yeah, these 2 farms were also very easy to make. Despite what they look like, it's pretty much just a bunch of piston conveyors that you would see in, for example, like a clay farm or whatnot, just a little bit different. Has to transport the player back up into this area over here, where the player sits and aims in between these 2 enchantment tables to mine all of the grass and mycelium that you do get from this farm. So yeah, very interesting farm concept overall, which is really why I wanted to do it. And obviously, another excuse to do another perimeter. All of the drops make their way down into this 6x loading array, of course, by fill again. These 6x minimal pre-fill loaders are just the best, I think, if you ever need to make a box loader that needs filters. They are 6x times hopper speed, and as well, they are very simple to make overall. And the benefit, you only need 1 stack, or per loader, you only need about 4 stacks or 5 stacks of items that you want to sort, which is a huge help when you are making a lot of these, or for an item that you don't have a lot of. It's very easy to actually do. But yeah, like I said, these portal pigment XP farms at the bottom will not produce any XP anymore, so they're kind of just like glorified gold farms that we don't collect any gold for. So yeah, we can't fully AFK the farms, but we could also, just input like a things at a time and then just have the things get mined up top instead. But you just can't fully AFK it, as there's no way to pair the pickaxes or shovels. Actually, I keep saying pickaxes, but shovels here that you use to mine the dirt forever and ever, unfortunately. So yeah, the farm still works, just can't sit here forever. So bring over a couple sugar boxes of dirt, put it in, run it through the system, and you'll get your grass and or mycelium in the output. We do also have storage for dirt in the middle here in case you do miss some. It'll then give you some output, because the farm also isn't fully 100%. Just like with anything random tick based, you can't fully guarantee you're going to get every single thing fully through with the conversion. So yeah, you can do sort of the extra dirt, that way we don't waste it and we can just re-input it back into the system if we ever needed to do so. All right, the next one is something that you may have seen some other YouTubers attempt, and this is our fully AFKable one that we have made here, with the thanks to Illyrio for designing this thing. This is a fully automatic beacon farm with a single player that stands in the same spot and doesn't move anywhere. So up here we have a very special bedrock formation that will allow us to trap the withers inside, and they will then suffocate within the bedrock there, and then eventually drop the nether star, so we don't need to worry about killing them in a certain way. However, this is also near a fortress here that we can use that is also low enough to produce enough to fully sustain the beacon portion of it. So with this fortress farm, there's actually 2 layers. Top layer, the soul sand, soil rather, is to obviously harvest the wither skeletons for the wither skulls. The bottom layer is magma blocks to spawn the pigmen for the gold to barter with. And we need both of these because obviously we need the wither skeletons for the skulls. We also need the gold barter for the soul sand. That way that is fully automatic. We don't need anything else there. We have on the side here the thing here to get the barter with for the soul sand. That is make its way down and into the filters here where we sort out the soul sand. But most importantly, also the obsidian. I kind of did forget about that. We need the obsidian to actually craft the beacon. So we get both of those things within that small little area there. That small little gold farm. The soul sand obviously makes its way over to the player. That way the player can place it. The player is AFK right down here. It's the platform. So the player is sitting right in here. They have their soul sand in the offhand, and they would have these soul sand in their main hand, or the offhand, and the sword in the main hand. They would then be swiping at this armor stand here, and every occasion when the wither formation thing requests some soul sand, when it does spawn a wither, you would then be able to place the 4 soul sand right behind you, thanks to this trap door that then flicks down in front of you, so that way you can't hit the armor stand. You're going to place the behind you, which allows you to be fully AFK in a single spot, and you can just sit there attacking and using interval of 1, or attacking interval 12, use interval 1. That way you can place soul sand, and that is conveyed all the way up to the wither killer. And then, of course, with everything else, we take the output of any excess gold and craft that into ingots and send that back up to the barter area. We also take the coal and the wither skeleton skulls and send that off down this float-aligned boat pathway here that sends all the items over to another location-specific thing we needed in this area, is a fortress, or a stronghold rather. So we have all 3 of these things in a very precise area. That way we can do it with all a single player. So we have the 3x3x2 bedrock formation for the withers. We have a low enough nether fortress to get the most amount of skulls possible, as that is your limiting factor on the amount of beacons you get per hour. But then we also have a stronghold to get the sand to smelt into glass. So on this side, you're going to be a little bit careful to not go into the portal. But we do have the stronghold here where we have broken the end portal frames before we update it, of course. That way we can get the small little sand duper over here. Detects every time an item comes through the portal, whether that be the skulls, the coal, or the nether stars. It will dupe a piece of sand and send that to the end dimension. And in doing so, make our way over to the end, where unfortunately, now that we updated, Silly String does not work anymore, so we get the spawn platform here. So we would need to modify the collection here to have cart Eden to do so. We ignore this big system over here. This is for our TNT factory that we will probably disassemble. It will no longer work. But the items would then normally, if we had the Silly String onto the soul sand here, make their way over. With this lever, I can change the way the water. I can right, which then go to the bunch of loaders there to sort all the gunpowder and/or we could craft a bunch of TNT. Or the left fits in the beacon mode, where we have everything flow down to the item filters down here. So obsidian, sand, the coal, and the nether stars in those 4 corresponding filters, which then made its way down to the old beacon crafter that I did design for this system here, which of course does not work anymore because we're not using any auto crafting tables anymore. We're the regular vanilla crafter, so we need to modify this if we ever wanted to do so. But the coal makes its way into the furnace. That way it can smelt all the incoming sand into glass. And then of course, nether stars make their way in. We have the coal for the furnace, and then on the left here, the obsidian that would craft the final ingredient for the beacon, and those are all then transported up to the barrel, a surplus of fully automated beacons with a single player. It was a very complex thing to, also build in survival, but also definitely took a lot of help from them to actually get all of the location picks out, all the schematics, all that fun stuff. So huge thanks to them for that. So originally we were only expecting to get around 64 beacons per hour. So, but when doing some more testing, we did find out it's about 134 beacons per hour. So just over 2 stacks of beacons fully automatically. No player input needed to get anything soul sand, coal, glass, obsidian, or any of the nether stars. So yeah, very fun project, but very complicated thing. It was a great combination to bring everything together in one spot. That way it could be fully automated, but it turned out great in the end. But yeah, this is the last one we're going to cover in the end dimension. We were just here, so we might as well go to now. The main reason we did this is because it's on the east and west side. There are a lot, I mean a lot, of clerics here. We mainly did this for the bottles of enchanting here, because those things are probably going to be the most common source of repairing. If I go to my EHS, you will see I have a full choker of this stuff on me at all times. That's to repair my elytra, which I can actually do right now. I take 16 normally. It's going to be enough to fully repair my elytra and plus some. So I always have that on me at all times to repair that elytra, so I don't get a keep swap constantly, because I do have, if we go back to my ender chest, I have a armor set here where I have full enchants of all of them. So I have a full fire protection set. I actually have 2 of those, one with Frostwalker, one with Depth Strider. Then I have a full projectile protection set, which never gets used. The blast protection set, which gets used every occasion when I'm doing manual bedrock breaking. And then of course the one I'm wearing right now, which is the regular protection armor set. So instead of having to make multiple elytras that are all the same, I just have the one and just repair it with the XP bottles here that we did trade for. So I had extra space, so I made some things for lapis and redstone, but that's never gets used because we have way faster farms to get those things instead. And of course, the name tags, if you ever needed to do those for things, we have all that there. But I try to keep everything within the floor here. That way it's very easy. Let's take up into the space of the actual main floor. If we go to the outside here, you will notice this big, giant temple, I think we can call it, that we have made here. It looks absolutely amazing. This thing took a lot of copper, which is also the main reason why we changed and made that thing, but a lot of green and a lot of the deep slate here to make a really cool looking structure here that we can call our new villager trade-in hall. So very cool project overall. Not the most technical advanced thing ever, as it's the villagers in a 1x2. And unlike the encoded one we had last time, where we could call them from different spots and change, this wasn't really needed. We wanted a simple thing at all times and mass trade with the clerics for XP bottles, as well as also keep all the books when we need to make new tools, armor. All the other villagers are not really useful late game, so there's really no point in getting all of them. So we just kept the most common ones, and I guess if we ever wanted to do so, we could always add more or make a new trading hall just for those types of villagers if we ever wanted to do so. So this area is going to be a little bit updated from the last time, as we did make another extension on the crop farm perimeter. Now, unfortunately, when we updated, if we go down below real quick in FreeCam, there is 3 ancient cities right beneath this perimeter. So this is the one that pretty much got nuked the worst when it comes to updating, because those things add so much passive lag. We are probably going to end up redoing this whole area entirely in a totally different area. So yeah, look forward to that. But this one, those little chambers there were for the old 117 random tick range. If you stood there, you loaded that half of the farm random ticks. Then over here, there's the other one for other stuff. So those were the little AFK spots for the random ticks. But of course, now it is your full render distance again. So that doesn't really make a difference to have there anymore. This is the one of the crop perimeter. If we go to the south side, right past the sugarcane farm, we will go into version 2, which is where we made the expansion. So through here, there's a lot more farms here. More of the more niche ones, I guess you could say. So we have the hanging roots, the weeping vines. We have in each corner, we have 4 of the wheat towers by Luke. And then this is actually, I think this is the one that you made for the dripstone farm on the side here.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Very simple flying machines, but all that stuff gets a shulker box loaded into its own little thing at the bottom. Over here we have just Luke's Nether Wart well, which is a continuous cycle all the way through. And then on the 2 sides of the farm here, we have fox-based berry farms. So these ones don't use bone meal. It's just the foxes pathfinding normally. And then underneath, we have a hopper minecart, which is currently turned off. That goes around collecting the drops beneath it. And we have 2 of these on each side. So I think we get around per hour, which is more than enough that you could ever actually need for that stuff. And then the last 2 farms on the other side, the northwest corner, we have a beetroot, carrot, and potato of the villager crop based farms. Those are all theirs. We get quite a lot of that stuff if we ever need to do so. And it looks like some loaders have run out of boxes, which is fine. We have probably like 200k of all that stuff, so really not needed to have any more. But yeah, we have those towers that give us a lot of that. And then the last 2 are actually moss foliage farms. So these do things like moss carpet, azaleas, and seeds if you really wanted to, I guess, with the grass that does get created from it. So we have those box loaders here, which sort all of that stuff out. It does create quite a lot. Let me just turn this one on real quick for you to see how it works. Essentially just a lot of pistons going back and forth. All it's doing is bone mealing the moss with the dispenser here that is creating a 6 game tick clock with the sticky pistons to have the moss carpets, the flowering azaleas, and all the seeds that you get from the grass that gets popped off. We don't sort the seeds because obviously there's really, besides we needed to make those wheat towers, this was really nice to get a lot of seeds very, very quickly. But yeah, those get all compacted into boxes and then make their way over to storage. I'll just turn this off real quick. All sorted out, and then right behind us here we have the storage system where everything gets box sorted out and put into its own silo here. So we've taken quite a bit of stuff back to main storage, but things like carrots and potatoes, where we have hundreds of thousands of them, we didn't take those back because, well, it's better off to keep them here at this point because there's just so much of them. But everything else has its own storage silo here. When it comes to things that you will need, they all have a spot here in the storage. But yeah, if we were to redo it, we're likely going to do those buttons there were originally going to be for on-off switches for the farms individually, but yeah, it's a bit annoying to route all that across the perimeter. So with going along with that, when we do redo this area, it'll likely be more compact, more practical, rather than have it all spaced out like this. It does look nice. However, the practicality of you flying everywhere to turn the farms on and off, and then flying between the storages over here to get all, it's a bit annoying at the end of the day. The deco looks amazing. It's just not really practical in the end. So when we do redo it to make it in a better location and not having 3 ancient cities beneath these perimeters, everything will all be condensed. We get even more fun. So there will be a lot more stuff to condense into it. So the farm will be a little bit smaller, produce less, but we will have them all in one perimeter instead of 2 separate ones like this. So that is something to look forward to later down the line. We do get around to updating this stuff. All the farms work still, which is a huge plus. However, it's just not the most practical thing in the world as of right now. So hopefully that can be fixed. New one. All right, so for the next project we got here is a very, very unique, probably may not have seen ever, and that is the main goal of this farm right here. So here we have our stray farm perimeter, and it is lovely decorated by, remember, Quarry. This mountain range looks absolutely insane for the project we got going on here. So it is making use of that biome border bug in quotation marks that Alira did find back in the last big tour we did. We had the tour with the Enderman farm. So that was actually a biome border bug that we call it, where at the very edge of a border here, so we have a that is bordering a nether waste biome, and for some reason the game really messes up when it comes to spawning those like things like gas and or skeletons like this that only should spawn very few amounts in between. If you don't know what we're highly talking about here, I would go look at the video by Nembomb that explains the 116 nether changes when it comes to mob spawning. Why is the golem getting hit? So apparently when we updated, this does also look way faster, by the way. There's never been this many skeletons here. So it looks like that this biome border has been like enhanced in a way, because this is way, way, way faster than previously. But it also looks like we have some portals that aren't linking properly, and they are hitting the golems they aren't supposed to be able to do. Oh, it's always the ones with the boots on. They might be jumping out of the the snow in the overworld.
Maybe. Yeah.
So, speaking of the overworld, let's go to the overworld real quick, and we'll show you that side of the farm. If we need to replace some golems, it's not the end of the world. They're really easy to do. We can fix this later down the line. But in the overworld side, we have our stray castle, or not really stray castle, but a themed castle here we have in the overworld, which is what we do all of our dual-dimension nether farms. We have this giant castle in the center. Each one is different, but this one has the stuff here. And it definitely looks like that this overworld side is not working as expected as it did, because there is a lot of missing powdered snow now, which is not ideal. I don't know why. This was fully working in 117. All right, so unfortunately this system does, for whatever reason, not seem to be as reliable, as a lot of these powdered snows are getting replaced. I assume that's just because of them getting caught on fire from like flame bows or things like that. They shouldn't be shooting each other in the overworld. But yeah, it's definitely the ones that are getting stuck here that are going back through the portal that were causing the golems to be killed. This would need to be revisited, unfortunately, and fixed, but should be possible. Just need to iron out a couple of things with the skeletons, whatnot. But they would normally fall through the powdered snow, and they would then shiver, and then that way they would create into strays, which then would drop the slowness arrows. I need to turn my sounds down. We also get a lot of arrows, slowness arrows, which are really nice to have. Not really, but useful way to farm them. And then, of course, all of the bones then make their way over to the storage down here, where we have quite a bit of stuff all stored up here. So, really nice way to get these slowness arrows. Like I said, not really useful themselves, but they are a nice thing to have if you, for some reason, ever needed them. So, it was a great project when it worked. All right, so this next one is a very interesting and cruel one, I guess you could say. But this is sort of based off the fact with the Panda farm from the Peaceful server. But this is also a different variation that doesn't use any minecarts for the pandas to be in, and it's a very cleaner, I guess, layout, you could say, with everything all done and dusted. So we have 2 wings here. You would, of course, use 2 players if you wanted to run both of them at the same time. But making use of the bamboo, you would then walk through the water stream without your depth strider boots on. You then go down the line here and you pandas, give them 2 bamboo just so it's work with, because sometimes the intervals are a bit slow based off, random water and whatnot. So it's not really as predictable. So the easiest way is just to give them 2 bamboo, which does mean we use a bit more than we need to. Second one, and then breed with the first one. But then once they are out there, you then pass through this string at the very end. So here, it'll push the pandas up. That will push the baby into the bottom water stream. Then they make their way down into the central area, where they come up this little water stream here, and then make their way tumbling down into the big central area where we have the processing chamber, where they will then sit there until they can grow up. When you have a constant stream, the babies will then sneeze, which then cause big pandas to jump. Then when they can jump, they will then clip the water and then into the actual killing chamber here, where you would then sword and at them, which you would then, get the extra bamboo that they drop, which is not really anything wild. But the main reason you would make this farm if you were in the Peaceful is it was the only way you can slime balls. So to craft your slime blocks to keep distance and whatnot, all these pandas here, all 80 of them, are the sneezing panda or the sick panda, where they have a little slime ball on their nose here. That way they create the baby that also has that, and then to actually drop the slime ball. Which in here I think we have, not very many. As you can tell, it's not very fast. It wasn't designed to be fast. It was designed to farm in mind. So one thing we do need with this farm, of course, is the bamboo to breed the farm. And on the back here, I modified Illyrio's bamboo farm that is usually on a 6 game tick clock to just be a on-demand version of that. So when we pass through on this Blackstone pressure example here, you will see that it sends a signal to the top module over here, and that will create, because I have 40 spots here, that will give us 40 bamboo. So then once we make our way around the water stream, we will then pick up our next 40 bamboo that will be waiting for us in this cobweb here. That way we can make another round of all of the pandas. Now it is on both layers. We do have 2 lot, because I do say we do for each layer, of course. We use all 40 bamboo, which is, we could get away with 20, but you need to change the interval which things are used. So at the bottom, it'll also toggle that and give us some more bamboo that'll be waiting for us at the next spot. So that is how we're able to keep a constant supply of bamboo coming to us. That way we can constantly breed the pandas without needing to do anything complicated with a huge bamboo field and rely on RNG. with the bone meal, we can guarantee we grow 1 bamboo every time, and there's no excess, no too less, and all it requires is a little bit of the bone meal in the dispensers here. So very nice modification to an already, really simple and easy to follow bamboo farm from Illyrio by making it on demand by getting rid of the observer stone block in this here. Just have it so that we power the dispenser or the power the piston with the observer instead. This was also one of a manual dug out perimeter here. If we fly up, you will see that it is in the shape of course, a panda, and that was dug out in a jungle biome. It does not need to be in a jungle biome. It was something that is done for the simplicity of getting the pandas very on here. And we didn't need to move them through any nether that. But it was dug out in the shape of the schematic that we found for the panda. So we do occasionally do some manual mining projects there, but now that we updated, we may only do like 1 or 2 more ever because it is a lot more blocks to mine manually. We shall see. We don't know for sure if we'll ever do a lot more, but at least 1 in the new terrain depth. That way we can say we haven't done it. This next one is going to be something that we had in mind to sort of solve the XP problem that we had in, of course, when the pigman XP farm doesn't work anymore. Of course, our main XP source is always usually pigmen when it comes to just getting levels for enchants and whatnot. That was the easiest thing to do, and it didn't require any complicated stuff. You let the pigmen just fall down, get an aggro to like a snow golem, but that unfortunately does not drop XP anymore. And the only feasible way to get this without a mob switch being off is Cactus. And when I say Cactus, I mean a lot of Cactus. My game does not like this area at all anymore. I, for some reason, can't even render this area. I don't entirely know what happened when we updated, if the fully messed up with, but is it fine on your end? Like, are you getting like chunks like rendering in and out?
No, it's the same as you.
So yeah, I don't entirely know what is happening here, but chunks are here, as we can tell, but like, I don't know if it's a server or what's happening here. It just looks a bit weird. So it is quite unfortunate that this thing isn't fully operational. It may be with like a player here, but I don't know what this chunk rendering or whatever issue is. But yeah, we have a cactus farm that was the max range of the random tick range before we updated. Of course, now it's full render distance. But this cactus farm made 504,000 cactus per hour. It's a lot, but it was roughly the same amount as the pigman farm if you, of course, smelt all the cactus. So on the west side, all these chunks load normally now if I'm over here, but when I'm in the cactus area, it doesn't load properly. I'm confused. But over here, we have a dark oak based tree farm. And what this is for is to get all of the charcoal to smelt the cactus. So we have a very simple but also pretty fast dark oak farm. This does create around 80,000 logs despite its size and very simplistic nature of it. But we used all of that to then smelt into charcoal with the mini furnace array right behind. I say mini, but it's like 384 furnaces. All of that logs into charcoal per hour. And then with the excess that we make from this, we then send that up to the big furnace array on top, which is, believe it or not, 2,048 furnaces that are required to smelt all 540,000 cactus per hour. it is a lot. Still don't know why the server is struggling with it, because all it is sand, cactus, bit of water, and then a bunch of furnaces. So not fully understanding what's going on with the server, but we laid these out in a specific area, or a wing, so you can call them. That way it's very easy way down, and it's not just a one long strip of 1,000 furnaces per side, but it also makes it a bit more compact. And with top up here, we can lock the furnaces and then unlock the furnaces, so we can have them all hopper locked if they're not being in use, or lock them if they are being in use. So we can do that with each individual hull. Like we use the hull, for example, we run through all the furnaces and needs to then block it all off. Or with the top one right here, my favorite button to click the entire thing here, this will unlock all of the hulls. So make a very nice wave effect all the way down all the hulls, which will mass unlock. Okay, again, it'll then mass lock the whole array. So that way everything is hopper locked if it's not being used at all. And of course, this is Illyrio's thing. You can also lock them individually to get these stuff out. The lamp being on means that the back is actually locked, and if there was any cactus in here, take it out and actually get the XP from it. But of course, there is nothing currently inside of it, so that is not going to give us anything at this point in time. If we actually make our way out the bottom middle trapdoors here, and we go to two of the corners, we'll go to the actual southwest corner here, you will notice that we have some dolphins here. So the water streams are so long that we have to reset the item despawn timer of the charcoal as well as the cat. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to actually make use of all of the stuff that these farms produce, and they would just eventually end up despawning. So this little dolphin guy here, and they will take the items that come from the side over here and retoss them, and that will actually reset the item despawn timer. That way they have enough time to make it all the way across the 2048 furnaces to actually be able to do smelting into cactus. So it is a interesting thing that we have such long water streams and giant farms and whatnot, that we actually need a dolphin to reset the despawn timer. Otherwise, it wouldn't end well, and we would just be wasting so much stuff. It seems to be now that the chunk load-in has fixed itself now. At least for me, it has.
Yeah, it's better.
So I don't know if the server just struggles loading this area for whatever reason. This was already preloaded before it did and everything. Yeah, I'm not fully sure, but we are in the process of making a much practical one, because this place does get very laggy now that we updated and everything, that all the stuff gets random ticked and ranged instead. So a more practical one that will be used for repairing and things like that. This still could get used, but it would be very unlikely and far and few between that this thing will actually get. It's 20 layers of cactus, and it took way too long to make, and I do not recommend this size. It gets very repetitive very, very quickly, but huge thanks to Zach that grinded out a huge portion of this farm here. This would not be completed otherwise, likely to be the case. But yeah, very interesting and large farm overall. Probably one of our largest ones we've ever done, even though it's fairly simple, but just being a cactus farm and furnaces to smelt it all. It's just the sheer amount that has been put into this area that makes it just that more crazy overall. So I actually do stand correct. This is actually the most useless farm that we've ever spent any time on. And that's due to the fact that these things actually drop nothing besides a little bit of XP. And because we're not using players to actually dispose of the mobs here, it actually produces absolutely nothing. And that, of course, is the Ocelot. But when you see this decoration, you can see right now, it is totally worth it. This is probably probably my favorite perimeter of all time that we've ever made. And it's solely because of the decoration. The floor just turned out absolutely amazing, especially for it being a flat floor. And even from the map POV, I mean, it just looks perfection. I can't get over it. Ever since even making it in creative planning, it looks sick. And I think it even makes it even more better than survival as well, with the gold walls that we have on the side there to complement the floor, everything. So this, of course, is a jungle biome where we get the naturally spawning ocelots. However, there's quite a number of other mobs that do spawn, and those annoying ones being the parrots. So these shifting floors are originally from KK. This is a farm designed, obviously, for 1.12, when you can get a lot of overspawning with passive mobs. But of course, that no longer works. The farm still works, obviously, it just produces a lot less than it would in a version where overspawning does work. For those that don't know what overspawning is, it is only really to do with passive mobs. Whereas with this one, the mob cap is only normally 10 per single player. With overspawning, if you had a lot of excess blocks, the spawning algorithm could actually overspawn that 10 number, and you could even get like an unlimited amount of passive mobs when that spawning cycle occurred. I don't know the details as to why that happens, but I do know what it is. So for large farms like Mooshroom farms in the past, you could get a lot more than just a single 10 Mooshrooms per spawning cycle. So you could get a lot more stake per hour and things like that. And that applied to every single passive mob. So yeah, these spawning pads, because the Ocelots drop nothing, if you go right beneath it, there is just a bunch of soul fire that just disposes of them that way, because there's really no point in even collecting the stuff. We could have tried to make conveyors and things like that. It would have been so complicated for what it's worth. This is mainly just as a proof of concept and showcase thing that you could do if you ever wanted to, I guess, manually gather some ocelots. You can just get rid of the soul fire beneath it, and you can get a few of those naturally spawning ones there. But yeah, I would say it's not really practical to make a full 530 block perimeter just for a few ocelots, but decoration looks amazing. I cannot complain, and it of course adds another perimeter to our total count. So that also helps in my personal goal of trying to reach 100 perimeter. All right, so this one is definitely a well over the top thing that we could have probably ever done. That does not take away from the next one that is even more stupid than this. This one, it takes it up a notch from compared to what other things you would use. So this is what we call our moss Peri. And this one actually farms the actual moss blocks. And what this does is this is a modified crow moss that has water streams instead of a lot of hoppers and whatnot that actually saves the moss blocks that you get from it. But it also, with a couple hoppers here, it will then be enough to fully sustain itself with Bonemeal. So it functions the same as our crow moss, just harvests the items a bit different. I'm going to put a bot here in place because just in case we tend to crash, it shouldn't happen. I'd rather just be safe here than having to rebuild a crow moss. If you have done it before, you know how sort of annoying it can be to actually do that. But in the middle here, I have an on-off switch. I'm going to just flick here. You can actually see the farm in action. I'm going to turn my sounds down again because these things are very, very loud. 3, 2, and 1. You could see how we make over 1.6 million moss blocks per hour with this small single layer 8x8 pro moss. If we just go into CS and go to the water stream output, this is only one side of the items get split into two separate sides just for the sake of item lifetime and the box processors, but on each of the west and east sides, you are getting about 800,000 moss blocks per hour, and for a total of around 1.6 million moss blocks. And as you can tell on the server, we're barely making a dent onto the server's MSBT, so we could even go higher if we want. But this is already way more than enough to actually store and process and all that fun. So over here on the south side where we came through the portal, there is our storage. And the storage is a very weird thing you could probably say, but it is a shulker display. But it's a shulker box display that works opposite to what you would normally do because the items, the boxes are displayed upside down. I couldn't tell you why I chose this, but it is, I'm pretty sure the Chronos bulk storage for the top section. I'm pretty sure it's the actual redstone bits of that from their quad bulk. I just wanted to do something different, so I used a different design I normally would have for this. Just in a simple, regular bulk storage, but this was an interesting thing to do for the first time. As you can see, we're getting a lot of moss shulker boxes already, and it's barely been a few minutes. So each time this sticky piston with the observer at the bottom pops up, that is the first block placement that is being activated. But because it can only dispense one box at a time, that just means each time that thing goes up and down, a box is being input into the system, which is fairly consistent. And the fact that it happens on both sides too is kind of insane. So I'm pretty sure if we actually count all the boxes, it's around, I want to say 1,000 per hour, which is just insane for how little effort the farm is. I was able to make this farm myself in about 4 hours. So it could very easily be done. And the amount of moss it produces is just insane if you think about a little fireworks show, I guess you can say, but a little bit more laggy, of course, because the calculations for the entity movement and whatnot. But as you can tell with the MSBT, we're barely above 20 with both of us on the server. And all the mob switches and stuff active, so not really a huge deal. But I'm gonna go stand on the water stream real quickly, just so you can see how quick my it is. Let me get rid of these mangrove leaves first. But yeah, your inventory fills up. Already filled. Really ridiculously fast. And keep in mind that that is only half of the actual water stream output because it's the same thing on both sides. So it would be twice as fast if you were getting all of them condensed into one single side instead. Turn the farm off here. I'm surprised you actually didn't disconnect from the server, which is surprising.
I'm also surprised, yeah.
But yeah, so to say this farm is insane is kind of an understatement with how much items it produces. But yeah, it's definitely a sight to behold to sit here and watch the countless boxes of stuff being inputted. As you can tell, on this side alone, this first slice was filled before we started, and we already have over like 27 boxes of moss on that one side. And then over here, I don't know how filled it is, but the slice is also now filled. So the slice wasn't completely filled yet. So yeah, we probably got almost like 54 shulkers in that time. The very short time we were talking here is just a little bit nuts, you could say. All right, now to go off of that, we have the regular Chromos that is not modified for moss. As you can tell, we're in a white perimeter, so that means it's all getting composted into bone meal. And it's the same 8x8 farm, but it is stacked 4 layers instead of just a single one. Now, with this getting all composted, a single layer of this 8x8 produces 128,000 bone meal per hour. So these 4 layers, if you multiply that all together, is just over 500,000 bone meal per hour, which is an insane number to think about. That is all being produced with moss, no mob spawning, nothing. All that is just stone generators, moss getting composted into bone meal. So we originally were going to plan to make a full 8-layer version of this that would create the 1 million per hour, but we very quickly noticed that that's really not possible with our current specs, and we do have a pretty good server to begin with. It is probably a lot more highly spec'd than what some other servers or personal computers would be. We have the Ryzen 9 7950X 3D, which at the time we made this computer was the best performing gaming processor that was ever existing on the market. And I'm pretty sure it's the same one that Chronos does also use on there. So you can do a lot and a lot of highly fast or large farms on that server, and it will not really budge. But this one does kind of make it suffer just a little bit. So we're going to turn it on. It might not be for long because it may disconnect a little bit. So we won't run it for too long in case that does happen. But just know that this thing produces 512,000 bone meal per hour. You will notice that the box loader array is a little bit smaller than the last one, but it's also on both sides because this was scaled originally to create 1 million. So the box loader array will be not fully used, as the farm isn't full scale it was originally going to be. So in 3, in 2, in 1, farm is going to get turned on. Now we actually haven't ran this ever since we updated, so I don't know what the server MSBT is going to look like, but it is jumping quite rapidly, I will say. But it did run under 40 MSBT on 117 server before we updated, so surprisingly, so far is doing okay. It's actually, I won't say it too much, but it's actually a little bit better than it was previously, even with me on the server. I could get 40 MSBT without me on the server and just the farm. So obviously, if you know about that, it's less packets being sent to the client. So the less players you have, generally, the better the server perform. Surprisingly, it is doing pretty good. I cannot lie. Especially the fact that we have all the new terrain beneath us that wasn't there before. I'd say that's actually quite good for the case of that, but we've all seen Chromoses before. Very simple thing, composting all the moss and stuff into bone meal, getting that in the output to also sustain itself. But yeah, in the water stream here, it'll be a bit slower than the moss variant because a lot more stuff needs to happen, and it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, of course. But even in that short amount of time, I've gotten already a box on the one side, which means we've gotten a box on both sides at that point. I probably shouldn't waste the bone meal because we have actually been quite a lot of the stuff when it comes to making some new farms for when we updated now. I'm going to just chuck it here and let it do its thing. But yeah, we have this different storage here. This is what we could have done for the moss variant, but I didn't want to do the same as that one. So we have the actual regular Chronos bulk storage here. We have a little bit over 100,000 bone meal currently. This did have a little bit over 2 million beforehand, but we have used quite a bit in very recent times. So this is kind of empty. So I probably should run this at some point, maybe after the tour of it. It is just actually not too bad on the server as it once was. Its decoration is very simplistic, but it also works very well. Now that we updated, I might go around, place some pale moss around the regular moss to like make it fit a bit better. But I don't know. It's not really needed, of course, but it would just be better for looks in the end. But this is where all of our calcite did go. As you can see on the floor and the walls, there's a lot of calcite there, and getting that in 117, let's just say, was not the easiest of things to do. There's probably about a calcite in this decoration alone, which is all thanks to Rubik that has manually gotten all this stuff for us in here. And we have one final area to visit, which is where we end off the tour there, and that'll be everything completed for the 5th and final year being in 1.17. We are now finally going to upgrade we already have into 1.21, and we will hopefully try to remain current versions with provided mod support is all. So we may be a little bit behind, but drastically like we were in the past. It's a bit unfortunate because a lot of stuff, as you can tell, even in this world has broken, which I didn't expect to. But in the end, you know, we have to update at some point, and that just means that things are going to need to break. But it does mean that we can actually read stuff, which does kind of hurt sometimes, but it does mean we can do it better and bigger than ever before. So there is some positive to it, and it also means for me, I can make some more perimeters and count that towards the total. So on to the last one, and we'll wrap up this world tour. All right, so the final farm here is General Passive Mob Farm, and this is a design by a Fallen Breath. I have seen probably on the TIS server, Piggy as they call it, which is sort of what we have going on here. So because we made it in a taiga biome, we do also get rabbits, foxes, and wolves on top of the normal passive mobs like sheep, cows, pigs, and chickens. So we get a bit of a more variety of it, which does mean that, you know, some of the farms are slower. But yeah, this one's going to take probably quite a long time. Once again, the height map has been increased. We won't be able to run this one for the video. Everything will, of course, be linked in the description down below if you wanted to see this. Pretty sure this video is out already on the YouTube. So if you wanted to see the whole process of making this perimeter, you can on the channel here where we did a full perimeter as well as the farm. And of course, on the other side, we have the storage. So where we just were is where we get the sync, like the Mooshroom one, to the spawn cycle of the every 20 seconds. But all the drops are then make their way over to here, where we have them into Leo's hybrid loaders. So we have where they first go into the top chest in regular item form. And then if we were to run the farm for longer, we would have them in shulker boxes on the bottom. See all the different items that we can get from this farm, from all the raw meats, the leathers, the hide, feathers, even some rabbit's feet, chicken eggs, which we have gotten a lot of. And even if we look at the end, we have the emeralds, which the foxes can actually spawn in their mouth with. And we also only kept the pink wool. Keep track of how many of those we have. We actually got any. Nope. Actually, we actually got one pink sheep from the testing time frame. No emeralds in about 5. So Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting thing to store, but it's also nice to keep track of what we got so far from running the farm. Obviously, it hasn't been ran for long, because once again, these drops aren't really the most useful when you have a lot of pork chops coming from the Hoglands. So back in the day, this would have been a very nice overall for any of your food necessities, but doesn't really happen, unfortunately. And we have the worst of it mob, have the ones from like the pigs, the chickens, foxes, the wolves, and the sheeps, as well as the rabbits. But yeah, that's pretty much the only reason you make this one of some vanilla tweaks mob heads. But this farm is by far one of the most satisfying single dimension. Fallen did an amazing job with. If I could turn it on, I try to. You probably won't get any mob spawning, but I'm going to just try to sync the clock and just manually step in here myself. Yep, looks like it is running. This thing, I could sit here and watch this farm all day. We probably aren't going to get any things. I didn't sync it up to the actual spawning cycle, but the water going all the way down, piston conveyors bringing all the mob center, and then fully harvesting them. It is a true sight to behold to watch this thing fully run constantly. One of my favorite overworld farms for sure, and which is why I really like them, because they're all unique. This thing wouldn't be as cool as it was if it just had a bunch of port whatnot that sent all the mobs to another, where you had a very drop shoot for the mobs to fall down. And I hope we can stray away from portal-based farms at some point. I know they will be a lot faster and smaller to build, but the coolness factor of single dimension farms, like, for me, outweighs everything there. So I hope to make a lot less dual dimension farms if we can, but not always is that the case. Should be in the shutdown sequence now of keeping the spawning platforms flooded. That way, no mobs will spawn on there until you sync it over on the other side. But yeah, a very nice perimeter overall. The wall decoration looks pretty sick in the end. It was a pain to make because it is a multi-layered. It has the black concrete on one slice and then all the back. So not the most practical to make in survival, but it turned out great and not to complain. And yeah, overall wraps up the tour quite nicely. That should be everything all completed within the 5-year tour. If you, of course, wanted to see anything else that we had previously, all the other world tours will be linked in the description down below. Also, check out Illyrio's channel. And they will also be doing a sort of like edit style that they have done in the. That way you can see that all recapped very quickly if you didn't want to see the whole tour. But I know quite a lot of you always love these worlds. Thank you for watching this if you have. Everything timestamped will be linked in the description down below, as well as all and/or that have everything, all that you would be looking for if you wanted to ever make one of these farms yourself. It'll all be down in the description, just like how I always do it for everything. So that's going to do it for this episode. 5-year world tour is finally wrapped up, and I still can't believe it's been 5 years, but now we're on into the 6th year, and hopefully at some point we make it to 10 years. Make sure you like, subscribe, all sorts of things, and I'll see you in the next one.